Welcome back and Happy New Year! I hope you all had a wonderful and joyous holiday season. I know I did, but I did miss painting with you. So let's get back into the swing of things. This is the time of year when people begin making resolutions or goals, writing down things that they would like to achieve or accomplish within the new year. And I'd like to put in a little plug for watercolor painting because it is never too late to learn how. Painting is a fulfilling and enjoyable hobby that provides a break from everyday routines and leaves you with a significant sense of achievement and pride in the work you've done. I delight in sharing my love of watercolor painting with you, and I have a stunning piece today that I think you'll really have fun with. Now, several months ago, I showed how to draw and paint this pretty pink flower, and because of the black, I might say it's a very different type of watercolor painting. I really loved how it turned out, and I think many of you enjoyed it and gave it a try as well. So today I'm back, breaking that black watercolor rule once again, and we are going to paint a part 2 to this pink piece and paint this blue and black flower today. These together make a great little pairing, I think. So let's get right into it. First off, we need some watercolor paper. Now I've chosen to cut my paper down to paint in a square format to match up with the pink painting, but you of course can do whatever size you'd like. I think this is 8" by 8". Then we'll pull out some watercolor paints, some clean water, and some masking fluid. We'll just be using this to block off the center stamen area of the flower, but if you don't have masking fluid, there is an alternative, but we'll talk about that more later. Now I've also pulled out an old small brush to use with the masking fluid just so I don't risk gumming up one of my nicer brushes. But to help clean that fluid out of the bristles later, I've just rubbed a little bit of liquid soap within the bristles, and that usually does the trick. Now I have 3 brushes I'll be using today from my personally designed craftamo brush set, which I am hoping will be back in stock later this month actually. They sold out pretty fast last time, so if you're interested in these when they do come out again, I have a link that you can click on in the description of the video that you can sign up to be notified with when they're available. Today I'll be using the large number 10 round, the number 6 round, and the number 1 rigger. Now we do need a bit of an outline for this piece today. Sometimes I take the time to show how to draw the outlines for these. In fact, I think I did show how to draw the pink flower outline because it was a little more simple, but this one is a little bit more complicated and time consuming. So to help you out and save a little bit of time with the process, I've created an outline for you that is going to be on my Etsy shop that you can simply download and print out right in your own home. Then you just trace it right onto your watercolor paper using a light table or even just a well-lit window in your house. And because I didn't show how to draw this one, I am going to put it on a sale with a 20% discount for 1 week only to help you out with this a little bit more. In fact, maybe I'll put the pink and black flower outline on this same discount price as well, just for fun. And as a side note, I do have my Etsy shop link as well as information and links to all of the other products you see me using today listed in the description of this video as well if you're interested. All right, let's just tape our paper down really quickly and then we're ready to get started. So the first thing that we want to do here is paint on a little bit of that masking fluid right in the center of the flower for some stamen lines. These are just thin, one-stroke little lines here, nothing too fancy or complicated, but later we will be painting some nice color right over the top of this so that when it's time to take the fluid off, we'll have a really awesome contrast of values going on right in the center of the flower that makes it very eye-catching and unique. Now, when I'm done using the masking fluid brush, I always go rinse it out and clean it out right away so that that fluid doesn't gum up the bristles. And then we will be ready to start applying some color on here. Let's start with the number 10 round brush first, and then we'll pull out a few colors that we need. Maybe some pure ultramarine blue, and for the darker, more shadowy blue, which I sort of already have on my tray, I'll just freshen it up a little bit. Some ultramarine blue with a touch of either ivory black or maybe some Payne's gray, whichever one you have, to darken it and tone it down just a little bit. Next up, we'll use some of that color to paint in a very light background wash. I'll be painting this wet on wet, so we'll start by painting a little bit of clean water on here first in the areas that we'd like it to go. I did have drawn on the outline a thin line showing this area so that it should be fairly easy to follow along with if you're using that. Then after we've got the water on here, I'll just begin adding in some of these blue colors that we just mixed up. I'll probably use a little bit of both of these. We'll just play it by ear and see what looks good. The biggest thing to keep in mind here is to keep the colors very light in value. The flower is also going to be painted blue later, so we don't want that to get lost in this background. We need it to stand out. The water that we placed on here initially does help quite a bit in keeping this color light, but if you do find that the color is still a little too dark, then you can always add in a little more water to help dilute and spread that color around. This also may leave some hard edges in here, which I don't really mind too much, but if you'd rather it be more soft, all you have to do is take your paper towel and gently dab some of the color and water off around those edges and soften it up a little bit. Now, once as the color is all placed on here, we just need to let the area dry so that we can start painting over the top of it. You can take the time and just take a quick break and wait for 10 or 15 minutes to come back to it. Or if you'd like to speed up the drying process a little bit, you can also use a hairdryer or something and help it dry faster. All right, now that the background wash of color is fully dry, we can start painting in some of the black leaves and stem accents. I'll pull out my number 6 round brush to paint in these more fine details. This brush works really well because even though it's not super small, it does have a nice point to it, making it very usable for this part. I will use some ivory black for this to make it nice and dark, but Payne's gray or even lamp black would work as well, whatever you have on hand. And then we'll just begin painting in the leaves and stems on the page. The great thing about having an outline drawing is that this process is a little more relaxed, at least in my mind anyway. I turn on some music and just kind of get lost in the painting process. I'm not having to think too hard about where things should go or what size they should be, or if I need to add in more. In fact, this area is even more so relaxed in that way because we're also not having to worry about shading or color mixing or anything. It's just a pure straight black. And personally, I think it will look very striking when we're done. I love helping people get excited about artwork, especially painting with watercolors. It just makes my day to hear when people tell me that not only were they able to paint something that they didn't think they could do, but that they were surprisingly pleased with how it turned out. That is always my goal with these projects. If you feel like you're enjoying my painting and teaching style, I hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already so that you don't miss out on more of my upcoming tutorials. I try to have something for everyone, including more beginner-friendly paintings to ones that are a little more advanced, from more free-handed pieces to ones that are a little more structured and easy to follow along with using drawings or outlines like this one. So now just sit back and enjoy the painting process. Now, really quickly, even though this number 6 is doing a pretty good job with some of these fine lines, we've got some really thin ones coming up. So I'm going to switch over to the rigger really quickly for this next little section. This brush is absolutely magical at making lovely thin lines. It really makes it easy to do. All right, that helped that area a lot to use that rigger brush, but I think we can probably switch back over to the number 6 again to finish this background area off. While I've got this brush and the black paint out and ready, let's go ahead and paint in the center of the flower too. Now, because I have the masking fluid on here, I can just paint this entire area and go right over the top of it. And then later when it's dry, we'll take that fluid off and we'll have some nice white lines in place. Now, if you didn't use masking fluid, go ahead and paint the entire area anyway. And we do have an alternative that we can try instead. All right, that really is the majority of this painting done now. All that's left to do is the flower petals. Now, I'll just be painting these wet on dry, but if you find that the color is getting streaky or not blending smoothly, you can absolutely use the wet on wet method instead if that works better for you. Basically, I'm going to water down a portion of this ultramarine blue a little bit to make some of it just a little bit less concentrated. Then I'll use that lighter blue to cover the entire space of the petal. This is going to give me a nice base wet color that I can then begin adding and blending into. Then while that base wash of color is still a little wet, I'll take a touch of the ivory black or whatever black you're using and apply just a touch of it to the inner part of the petal closest to the center of the flower for a bit of shadow look. That looks pretty good, but I think I actually lost a bit of vibrancy of the blue on that one, but no worries. Sometimes we learn as we go. So on these next couple of petals, after I get the base layer down, I may apply some more of the concentrated blue in the shadow area first, and then I'll add the black after that. I may even try adding some darker color on the tips or the ends of the petals as well and see how that goes. I think a lot of artwork and painting is just experimenting and finding out what works and what doesn't. And some people have techniques or methods that work better for them than others. And I don't know, I kind of think that experimenting is all just a part of the fun. Okay, I think I'm liking that a little bit more. The petals have a good gradient of values going on and they still look and say blue. So now that I've found a combination and blend of colors that I like, I'll just continue on until all of the petals are complete. I will also point out that you may see me skip a petal in here later that is touching some of these others, and I'll come back to that later after the area is dry so that the colors won't bleed into each other. All right, well done. Now we do need to let all of these petals dry before we can add in a few of the little finishing touches. So if you want to, pull out that hairdryer once again and help that out a little bit. But whether you do that or not, when the area is completely dry, let's pull out the rigger brush once again, and using it and some black paint, let's paint in some very thin, small vein lines on the petals. There doesn't need to be a whole lot of these. This should be an accent to the piece, not the focal point. Then when those accent vein lines are completely dry, we can go ahead and take off the masking fluid in the center of the flower. Now you can rub this with your fingers, but I often just use an eraser. I seem to smudge the paint less when I do it this way. That looks pretty good, and I could probably leave it just as it is, but I may tidy up some of these lines a little bit using some black paint. Now, if you didn't use masking fluid but want the look of these stamen lines standing out, you can pull out some white opaque paint like acrylic or gouache and simply paint these white lines on instead, and that is totally fine too. Now the last step to this piece, which I guess is optional, is to add in a few splatter marks into the background. I'm going to go ahead and cover up the parts of the painting that I don't want to get splatters on, such as the petals of the flowers, using a scrap piece of paper that I have lying around. Then I'll load my number 6 brush with some black paint and simply tap it onto my number 10 brush to shake off some of that paint. I'll just do this here and there around the picture until I get the look I want. You can have as many or as few of these as you'd like. In fact, you can even add in some blue splatters in here as well if you want. I may even paint in some larger or more purposeful splatters as well. Really just whatever. All right, I think we can call this painting done. I really like how it turned out, and it makes a great double piece to go along with the pink and black flower. I may have forgot to say, but if you haven't painted the pink and black flower yet and want to, I will leave a link for that full-length tutorial in the description down below. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch today. I hope you had some fun and maybe even learned something new. If you did enjoy this tutorial, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.